What's up, pioneers? So today we are talking about the O in love, which is O, attachments. And to talk about attachments, I brought my lovely colleague Lauren on because she not only graduated with a master's of family therapy, she's also dynamite and practices therapy daily. Maybe not daily, but she actually do that for real life, and I ain't been called to that yet, to do it for real life yet. So I'm just here. And I want to talk to you guys about attachments because I feel like it's so key and important when it comes to our interactions with other people. And our attachment style is basically like the interactions that we had with our caregivers and people who were important to us while growing up that shaped kind of how we interact with each other and see the world.
Absolutely.
So there's 4 different types. There's secure, avoidant, anxious, and disorganized.
Yes.
You can take over secure.
Okay, so basically secure attachment is when you have a very solid understanding of self, and when you're growing up, you pretty much feel that your caregiver is going to be there for you, but you don't have to necessarily depend on them, but you can at least say, okay, if I need them, they're there, right? So you can kind of walk into the world, do what you do, and then be like, okay, I can, and I shall conquer the world. No, but in all seriousness, that's pretty much what it is, and it kind of proceeds as you go into your, romantic relationships as well as your friendships and other situations.
Then you have avoidant, which is your caregiver was not always the most attentive, and so you weren't confident that they would get your needs met. They were very neglectful, and so you felt like as a result of that other people were going to neglect you as well. So when it comes to you interacting with other people, you're less prone to be like, I'm in here, I can do this, because you're like trying to figure out like, is this person going to leave me? Is this person not going to meet my needs?
Right.
Like my caregiver didn't meet my needs most of the time or all of the time. I think it's really most of the time. It's not 100% like they met my needs at every beck and call, but it's like with avoidant, maybe 10-15% of their needs met. Like they had a roof over my head, but like they might have slacked somewhere emotionally or socially or even physically, depending on like if you might have been a sick child and had a bunch of medical issues and things like that.
Or if you're like bidding for attention a lot, and it's like
They're like,
boy,
go play.
Girl,
go play.
Go sit over there for a little bit.
Don't you gotta try?
A little time. We'll play.
Get out my face.
Yeah. So.
And then there's anxious.
Yes. Oh, you would like for me to?
Oh yes.
So anxious attachment styles are pretty much where. So the individual pretty much is trying to gauge what is going on in the situation, but also very self-conscious because there is either, again, growing up, there are moments where it's like, oh, your decisions aren't right, or oh, no, you can't do this. No, like there's always a second guess to the point where now the person is constantly insecure about any decisions that they end up making. And so when it comes to relationships, they're always like, is it me? Did I do something? Any little change, any little sign that there might be something different, they become anxious and just like, oh God, maybe I should change something about myself. Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And then it's just a constant cycle of trying to be something that is for the ultimate level of acceptance. So
this is true. This is true. That sounded real relatable. My edges and snatches line. Then there's disorganized, which is a crisscross of avoidant and anxious with also some mix. So if you typically have a disorganized attachment style, that means that there was some abuse in your upbringing, childhood, whatever. So that could be like, neglect, emotional abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, to the point where not only are you anxious about like, let me make sure I'm okay and that I can be accepted, but you're also like kind of fearful and avoidant because you don't know that you can trust the other person's motives and actions, because you constantly had that back and forth growing up of like, oh, I'm your parent or primary caregiver one moment, and then the next moment I'm your aggressor, or like I'm tearing you down. And so you're looking at everybody else, interacting with everybody else as if like, are you going to do the same thing? Like, are we going like, what's this dance? Like, which side are you going to end up on? Are you actually just one person in one face, or are you two that I have to constantly adjust and connect to? Which honestly, disorganized is what I am. It's really hard because it's like, you want to give people the benefit of the doubt, but then you're also just like, I literally don't know how, because I grew up where the person that was supposed to protect me did not. So What do I do? Where do I go?
Right.
First things first, therapy. It helps. It's important. Second thing second, being able to recognize that and understand that. But then also, too, me and Lauren can attest that attachment is not just unilateral. So it's also not something where it's like, oh, I'm disorganized, so I'm disorganized with everybody. Yeah. I, surprisingly enough, have a secure attachment to her. Who knew? Who knew that was possible? And I have like secure attachments to some of my other friends, and then I have anxious attachment to some of my other friends, and then I have avoidant attachment to some of my other friends. It's just all over the place. It's not, I think it depends on the interactions that you have with other people to determine like if somebody is really good at like actually putting you at ease, being consistent with you and showing you that you can depend on them, then that'll, you know, soften you as well and make you think, okay, maybe I can trust them. Like you showing me that you good, so I'm good too.
Yeah, I think that's true too. And if you think about the core of attachments, the main thing are my needs being met. And so your inner child is just like, okay, in this particular situation, are my needs being met? Are they caring for those needs? And even though you may be like, I think so, maybe, I don't know. But because of, depending, again, especially when it comes to the insecure attachments, even if you're trying not to, even if you're like, I'm gonna walk into the situation and try to be as secure as possible, you're still gonna have this, and we're gonna kind of, I guess I'm gonna talk a little bit about the ego side of it too, like, not ego as in egotistical, but ego as in this person, if you will, this voice in your head that's like, nah, like, maybe we should protect ourselves, because again, that's what we depended on, is the cycle, right? And I think everything is just very ironic. So even though we might say, this is what I really needed and I didn't get it, we still play those cycles out in those situations, even though we don't want to. So the irony is always going to be there until what? We're self-aware, until we're recognizing, oh, this is a thing, this is a pattern, and I probably
That's what I was talking about in my relationship series, is I kept playing out my attachment style with the men that I was entertaining and attracted to. I was just, because you kind of, you know, especially when you don't like understand and are self-aware, like beautiful Lauren said, you kind of have a tendency to go with what you know. And so if all I know is back and forth, constant, disorganized, I'm going to gravitate towards that. And it's kind of too why people are like, oh, you marrying your mom or you're marrying your dad, because it's like those relationships really do kind of like stick with you and influence the type of people that you are like, okay, yeah, oh, I like this person because they really remind me of how kind and sweet and gentle my mom is, or like, oh no, this person reminds me of my daddy and he wasn't even there but for like 0.5 seconds and then he did. So oh, let me try to fix this attachment style with this person, so that then maybe, you know, the whole dad thing doesn't sting, or like if I get this right, then everything's better. Like I get the validation that I needed. It does not work. And 9 times out of 10, it doesn't actually like work out anyways. At least from my personal experience, I've been trying to fix the cycle.
But self-aware though. I think beforehand you might have been like, "This keeps happening. Why does this keep happening? I don't understand it. Why?" And then because it's being reflected, we're all mirrors in a way, right, to other people. So we're reflecting the things that we really probably needed, but we're like, "Nah, I don't know how to do it," because again, we're conditioned. That's again back to that ego. We get conditioned into it, and we're like, "This is safe." You know, if you think about survival mode, like our brain is like, okay, let me make sense of certain, you know, stimuli, and then say, okay, this is the picture that I'm making.
No, literally.
This is what I can expect, right, for survival. So our brain, when it comes now, we really don't need to be like, oh, I'm hunting and I need to do this and I need to do that for survival. But our relationships are part of our survival. So when we get into this pattern, our brain is like, okay, I can expect this, I can assume this, but our ego might go in overdrive and be like, yeah. Tie in that attachment style, you're gonna be like, ooh, I need to survive. No, I need to survive. And so even though, again, back to the irony is, even though we're like, I need a sense of safety, I need these needs met, but because you're so conditioned and needy and relying on the dysfunction of those types of relationships, even though we don't want it and we can't stand it, it's predictable. It's safe. So
at least you know.
So you're like, even though, like, if it's something new that's probably a healthier situation, we might be like, ow, this looks nice. This looks great, But I don't know if I can like really be in that. Like I don't know because I've never been in that. It's unfamiliar territory.
True.
You know?
True.
So then you're like, let me go back over here.
Instead of like trying to forge a secure relationship, I'm just
let me come over here because I know what could happen, even though I don't like it, but I can expect it, and that's fine for now.
it's survival. No, that's 100% true. And honestly, I feel like when you know that and you kind of like start to step back and pay attention, you see why so many relationships like just crumble. Like just because it's like they're just playing out attachment styles. Like I feel like I see two disorganized attachments and Lord Jesus. It's like, cause it's, cause it's the two. So it's just like they'll either be really anxious with each other, like anxious avoidant, and it's like, oh, well, they're avoiding me. So then like, I don't feel secure. So then let me avoid them. And then like, it's just, we're flip-flopping. And then sometimes we're both anxious and we're both like on the same page trying to like get approval from each other.
Right.
It's madness. And if you don't understand that, to like either give your partner space and be like, okay, well maybe this is just a like super emotional moment for them. Maybe they're like avoiding to protect themselves and their feelings. Like we can allow them that space to like process, and then we can come and talk. Or as an anxious person, if you can be like, okay, look, like I'm just trying to like get some approval and get some love here. Like, can we? And then they just like, what?
Like, why?
I'm secure, so you're supposed to be secure. Like, I don't even do emotions. Like, what is this?
So why are we doing this? It's just over the top. No, yeah, that's true. And again, you're just trying to avoid the same patterns.
You are. That like rejection feeling or that hurt feeling from like not getting your needs met is super.
Yeah, you're just like,
not the funniest thing to deal with for sure.
I will say I've told one of my clients this before, who's been in situations very traumatic and just like can't really trust and all that. And I said to them, okay, basically you were kind of, imagine if you have a battlefield, right? If you have just a field, and then we have all of these hidden missiles underneath the ground. Okay. Just set that in your mind right now. Just, okay. And so now you're like, okay, I need to walk across and get to the other side of this field, but I don't know where these missiles are. So
like I've seen war movies where like they step on it and then if you step off you blow up.
That part.
So it's like
so that's kind of more like the disorganized, like snap.
I stepped on it.
What do I do? So but then if I tell this person, okay, here's a field over here, and I promise you there are no missiles hidden under this ground. What you think?
I would be like, you lying. Player from the Himalaya.
What?
Nah.
They'd be like, you lying. Give me a metal detector right now. Give me this. Because they're going to be like,
Oh, okay, that metal detector thing made me think though, because if you have the self-awareness, but then you're also like equipping yourself with like healing, growing, and learning more about yourself, that's like your metal detector. So then you can navigate the field and go through and have your proof that it's not rigged. This is not a trap.
This is not a trap. This is real life. This is legit.
Oh my God, is that what happened?
But you gotta be self-aware that, okay, I'm feeling these things. I'm feeling triggered. Why am I feeling triggered? So if I tell you this field is all good and dandy and you can walk across it, frolic all you want to, unless you're trusting yourself to make the decision to do it, to say I'm trusting the situation, but I'm also trusting my own judgment, then you're like, chains broken. Like you're just gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna do what I want to do when it comes to this. But you're gonna, that's pretty much what it is. And I think because of the whole growing up process, you're still trying to, when it comes to the insecure attachments especially, and like I said, it's fluid. It's not like it's gonna be like that forever. It's not gonna be,
no, it is not fixed. It is not permanent. You can always heal, grow, and get your attachments.
Some researchers might say, some theorists might be like, nah.
That's why they're theorists.
Theory, okay, philosophy. What is? But anyway, that's a whole story. But
existentialism. We'll go over it. Another video.
A whole other situation. No, but what are you gonna say? I'm sorry. No, you're good. No. But yeah, so basically, it's just like Trusting yourself. So, thank you. When you're trusting yourself, if you think about when you're growing up, right, and then these insecure attachments that have been formed over time, it's like, okay, this person is that voice in your head, like that ego I was telling you about, that voice earlier. It's like, is it really your own voice, or is it other people's voices within you that you've kind of taken on as yourself? Because sometimes it would be like, you know, it might be like, oh, I think I'm making this decision, but then you're like, this one's telling me nah. But if you really think about when's the first time, or the first few times where you're like, if I made this decision, what would that person have said? You probably could pinpoint who those people were that are really the same voice. So they're not physically there with you, but now you've kind of taken on their, like, you've given your power away. So you've taken on their kind of policing, if you will, as your own voice. And
sometimes it's not even like something that somebody has to say. Sometimes, especially as kids, we just are so, at least for me, I don't know about anybody else, but I was really internal. And so I would like take a situation like my sister wanting to hang out with my cousin. I'm like, that means she don't like me. Like, dang, my own sister like my cousin better than me. She ain't say that. Nobody said that, but that's what I interpreted, because I was like, that's what she did. And so then that became my mantra, and I was just like, wow, my sister just don't like me. And for years, I was convinced this child never said, I don't like you, Jasmine, to me in life. But I was just like, nah, she don't, because she doing this, she doing that.
It's like this.
And that was just my inner voice. And it switched, and it was like, oh, well, then nobody likes me. If your own sister don't like you, don't nobody like you. And I'm just like, ooh.
Well. Especially when it comes to family, because you're like, okay, family's supposed to be, you know, the first attachment, right? Or your parents really, but your family's the first, like, nucleus, right?
Ooh.
And so
anatomy.
And so when you're like, okay, this is what it should, like, society tells me this is what it's supposed to look like, or like this ideal picture of what perfection is, or what family should be, and you know, the whole 9 yards. And so when we don't get that, then we're like, okay, if my own family, my own nucleus doesn't treat me this way, then what makes me expect that I could trust someone outside?
What Tom, Dick, and Harry on the street is gonna be like, I will let me love you unconditionally? Like what?
And you're like, what? How, Sway? Because it doesn't make it make sense. That's what that is. Make it make sense.
It doesn't add up at all. Mm-mm. Being honest, like, we're not perfect. We're humans. I got hella flaws everywhere. Like, yikes. It's ridiculous. I am stubborn as a mule, much to my friends' dismay, whatever. Much to guys' dismay. That's really who I'm trying to work on it for. Because the Lord be like, little girl. And I'm just like, oh, sorry, daddy. But like, no, you need cohesion. You need honesty. And I mean, self-awareness is also too working on that trust in yourself, which I mean, when you don't have a secure attachment, it is really hard to trust yourself in your judgment, especially when you enter situations where it's like, my friends keep abandoning me, or like guys keep leaving me, like what am I doing wrong? Like, I mean, and then you're second guessing yourself, and it's just like, oh, well, maybe if I like did tweaks this or did this differently, or like plug this variable in, I'll get a different outcome. And it's just like, a lot of that, like I said, a lot of the situations that I got into is because I ignored my intuition, because I did not trust myself. And literally, y'all, I'm in a situation now where my instincts are like, this person is fine. There is no mind feel in sight, and I'm just like, you lying. You're lying. There is something wrong. I do not trust it.
There has to be, right? That's what it is.
I'm just like, so up with this. Yeah. This person ain't A1. Like, what you mean? But that's the first time that my intuition has also been like, this is a decent person. Usually I get trash, walk away. Not and I'll be like, I can love trash. Just let me wrap my arms around the trash. I can take it with me.
Not with you.
Is that judgment, y'all? Is that judgment?
It's not judgment of you, but just judgment of how we gonna take this whole, like, logistics.
Oh no, it's not a dumpster. It's just a trash can. You can pick up a trash can.
You got strength. That is strength right there.
I'm just doing the
symbolically and literally, figuratively clear.
Yes, if nobody else tells you,
Yeah.
regardless of your attachment style, you
Yeah.
are strong, you are
Yeah.
capable, and you are loved. And all you gotta do is just, do some practices
Yeah.
every day, and then you're gonna get there. But it
Yeah.
takes acknowledging.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me, a close friend of mine, he was like, what's the definition of insanity to you? And I was just like, doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. And then he was like, can you recover from insanity if you don't know you're insane? And I was like, no.
Woo!
So literally, like, so the first step is acknowledgement. Like, you
Yeah.
can't fix anything. It's like, if I don't know I got a broken leg, how am I gonna know to go to the doctor and get a cast on it? If you don't acknowledge the fact that, like, there is something wrong, and there's not to say that means it's something wrong with you, but just that this is not cohesive, this
Something
is not helpful, protective,
Right.
anything like that,
Right.
then let me go
Right.
get an adjustment.
Right. And then, people can tell you 100 times over, right? But if you are in a space that you're like, I don't know if I can trust the situation, I don't know if I can trust your opinion, then you're not going to be able to take in that information to say, oh, maybe I should constructively make certain changes that I feel like I need to make, right? So if you don't feel like you need to make it,
You ain't going.
you're not, it's not going to connect. And then it's also, I think, actively, like you said, practicing it too. Because once you're self-aware, you can understand what's triggering you in the moment. And you can say, normally I think I would have done this. Let me hold on for a second. Let me be self-reflective and see, why am I feeling this way? And once you understand that, I think that's where the trust comes from.
My final point is this.
Yeah.
When it comes to attachment, you cannot force somebody to change their attachment. You can't love them enough to change their attachment, especially if they don't have the consciousness and self-awareness.
Right.
Because I feel like that was part of my problem too. Is I'm just like, maybe if I just give them some love, they'll get here. We gonna move. We gonna transition. We gonna both be secure. If they don't have any sort of want to change, if they don't think they need to change, if they think they're perfectly fine, you have the permission from me to exit stage left, because there is absolutely nothing you can do. It's like you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink.
Can I add one last thing?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Only because of the healthy boundary. I think briefly talk about healthy boundary, because again, I think some people kind of fall into the I can, I do, and
Trash
hence
can?
the
Yeah.
trash can. Right? And it's not to say don't help people. It's not to say, that you just can't try, right? Or try to be part. It's just, because I feel like sometimes you might be like, well, okay. Especially, we got different attachment styles out here. I just feel like we want to make sure that's
fair.
But with with healthy boundaries, it's first understanding what your intentions are, but also understanding that you can only control what you can control. You can't control anybody else outside of yourself. So if you're like, oh, but maybe I can, and this, and healthy boundaries for yourself, I think, is part of that key self-awareness, and then also having that healthy understanding and being able to not necessarily like change you, but be in a more like kind of transition into a more secure attachment with other people, or having at least a little bit more secure attachments than you probably already have, if that's a thing. But
It can happen.
it can.
It happens to me.
It's
It
just
can happen.
active work. It's just active work. But
It's also really tiresome, so we need to take a break. I understand. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But I am really proud of the woman that I'm becoming. She's sassy and I like it. Honestly, she reminds me a lot of Princess Jasmine. So
It makes sense.
I'm just becoming a princess, people.
It's making sense. I mean,
Okay, I'm sorry.
sorry.
If you want to know more about this beautiful goddess here, you can surely follow her on Instagram at LBMet. And she also is a famous poet/author. Yeah, I said it. She wrote a book. Is it Of Heart and Mind Poetry?
Yes,
Did I get
Of
it
Heart and
right?
Mind Poetry and Insights. You can find
Check
on
it out.
Amazon.
I really liked it, and it helped like spark some stuff for my own personal growth journey. So I feel like y'all would like it too. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next Monday.